All right, folks. Well, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune, because it's time for another week of the RecPoker Podcast. This is our weekly chats interview edition. We also have a weekly forums edition that's all about strategy. I'm Jim Reid, your host for both. I go by Bluff Sterini in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on socials. And I have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with my friends every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern live on YouTube. You can join us for free and win a prize just for showing up. Now, we're talking to the one and only Dr. Kamikaze in just a minute. First, I'm proud to share we're brought to you by Running Aces. They are the official sponsor of the RecPoker Podcast. You can find out more about them at runaces.com, or you can just come show up. We're doing RecPoker Weekend at Running Aces, not this weekend, but next weekend, August 1st and 2nd. There are two tournaments both days. I'm going to be there late on Thursday night to get some dinner and have some fun. And then tournaments all through Friday and Saturday, and then I'm flying home Sunday. I hope I get to see a bunch of new smiling faces and meet up with some old RecPoker friends. I love RecPoker Weekend at Running Aces. We're also adding a food bank benefit to this one specifically. Of course, we'll always be taking donations at the door, but we're also having an add-on to one of the Saturday tournaments, I believe, where you can bring up to 4 non-perishable food items and get some extra chips for those that participate in our food bank drive. So I hope everyone comes out, has a great time, checks out the newly renovated space at Running Aces, and we're just going to have a great freaking weekend. I'm so excited about it.
Just to be clear, you don't have to bring chips to get chips. It can be really anything that you want. So.
Great point. Thank you, John. Wah, wah. There's our resident punish.
That's right.
Exactly. He's here, folks. Like Joe Coulis, most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization. A lot of the folks that you see here on the panel are contributing their time and expertise because they love making the recreational poker place the world a better place. So you can come support what we're doing for free by getting a free community account at rec.poker today. All it takes is an email address and a smile. But of course, if you want to go premium, you can check out our premium membership for only $22 a month. We've got a ton of interactive training sessions, videos, other amazing resources. And you can always get your first month of premium membership at RecPoker by making a donation of any amount to your own local food bank and sending us the receipt. So if you want to give us a try, just drop $1 in the jar at your local food bank, send us the receipt, and we'll make sure to send you your first month of premium as a way of saying thanks for helping out your fellow humans. Now, speaking of fellow humans, you get to know my voice because they let me host the show on Mondays, but I'm only one man. It takes a whole crew to make the magic happen around here. We call our leadership panel the RECing Crew. And if you want to learn more about me or the rest of the RECing Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew or just listen up. We got a few of them in the booth tonight. It's not just me. It's John Somsky, Joe Coulis, Lorianne Persinger, and our invisible producer, Chris Jones. That's right. Our normal invisible producer, Rob Gardner, is traveling America, playing poker and slaying on the felt. So if anything goes wrong tonight, it's all Chris Jones's fault. Gang, before we start the interview, we've got 2 Dr. K's in the house. Of course, there's our guest tonight, but Dr. Joe Coulis, what have you been up to in the poker world recently?
Well, I play online, as you know, and I grind the micros, particularly on either Ignition or Club Gold, Club WPT Gold. And I made the advice is typically don't leave too much money on a particular site because you run the risk of losing it. And I set a goal for myself. I said I would start taking money off of a club when I reached $1,000, and I'm happy to say I made that over the weekend and have started drawing down to keep myself at a particular level, which is kind of a milestone. I know it. Other people are like, it's only $1,000, dude, but
no, man, that's awesome.
But you play micro stakes. I was going to say,
yeah,
stakes, yes.
It ground up from $50, so it's not, it's all just profit. So
that's beautiful.
Anything else, and so
and
I'm proud of that.
We talk about recreational players and having a bankroll, and we often say, like, don't think of it as a bankroll, think of it as a budget. Like, think of it as money that you get to spend on a hobby that you really enjoy. But poker is this great game that if you work hard and if you're disciplined and if you game select well, you can be a profitable player. And I don't know anyone who's turned $50 into $1,000 by exploring other hobbies like going to the movies or bird watching or sailing. So I just want to give a shout out there. Way to go! Congratulations, and also way to keep poker in that part of your life where it's
Thanks.
managed, and you enjoy it, and it's fun. Congratulations. I think that's a huge milestone. $1,000 is a lot of money. Like,
It's
way to go.
It's nothing to shake a stick at. I do know some burglars who turned their hobby into $1,000 or $50, but in the legal round, it's, I'm pretty happy with it.
Speaking of the legal realm of poker, so not everyone can play on Club WPT Gold, which I know is available to you Yankees right now. I keep open in Canada, you cowards. But in the meantime, I am happy to share that we have been working with WPT Global. And now, if you're not in America, but if you're in Canada or several of the other countries around the world, if you check out the YouTube chat right now, you can click on the link there and sign up for a WPT Global account. And I'm looking forward to getting a little more involved with them. They're part of the WPT Empire, which is great. We've been affiliated with some of those brands and operators in the past. And they're doing actually a WPT series right now, this week and next week in Montreal at the Playground Poker Club, which is just a few hours away from here. So I'm looking forward to participating in that. That's going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's bring in our guest. Dr. K is a mixed game enthusiast, also based in Southern Ontario. And maybe I'm not sure if they have plans to get out to Montreal for the WPT, but let's just start off by saying, Dr. K, welcome, and thanks for coming on the RecPoker Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm not coming to WPT, unfortunately. I'm not able to travel at the moment, but I'm planning on going to WSOPC in Montreal next month.
Yeah, next month at the end of August. That's one of the things that we'll talk to a little bit here, actually. I'm very interested. We're both... well, we'll get into it. I'm going to save it till we get to the right spot. We like to ask all our guests at the beginning to kind of put themselves in a box if our audience doesn't know much about you. Dr. K, you've had several roles in the poker world over the years, a player, a coach. How would you define your own role in the poker world today?
A lot of people hate this word, but I use the term poker enthusiast a lot. I still play a little bit when I can. I still coach when I can. I've been writing a little bit for GTO Wizard blog and stuff like that. I've been around poker for over 20 years now in various capacities. And I've been fairly active in various ways. I just love poker. Like the second I was introduced to it, I became obsessed, and I am blessed with being curious and interested in a lot of things over my life, and I love to learn and all of that. But poker has been one of my long-term obsessions that just won't seem to quit. So I gave up resisting that a long time ago and just try to enjoy it the best I can, the most I can.
That's a great answer, and it resonates with this crowd for sure. This is we're pretty enthusiastic about our love for poker and how great a role it can have in your life as well. Well, let's dive into the segment that we like to call opening the action. So this is our speed round. Invisible producer Chris Jones is going to put 2 minutes on the clock with our dramatic ticking noise in the background, and I'm going to fire as many questions as I can. We're looking for answers that are honest, fast, and quick. And if you have to pass, feel free. You can say pass, and then we'll see what our proprietary algorithm scores you at the end of the segment. Are you ready, Dr. K?
Let's do it.
All right, opening the action. The first question is an easy one. What is your favorite poker hand?
Aces.
Good one. Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Is it what? Sorry?
Is it a gamble or a skill game?
Oh, skill.
What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
People who like to harass and never shut up at the table.
Oh, we're going to get into that later, too. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Absolutely.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
No way, and I will die on that hill.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Do you hang toilet paper from the front of the roll or from the back of the roll?
I try to hang it from the front, but it winds up in the back a lot too.
Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Neither. I'm allergic, unfortunately.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Lazy.
Do you prefer playing live or online?
I guess slight preference for online, but I like both.
There's a yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
Slow down.
Are you pro chop or no chop?
I'm pro chop because of sometimes I need to because of health reasons or tired or like whatever. So I think if you're, if you want to, yeah.
That makes sense. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
One horse-sized
Stumper.
duck.
All right, slow rolls. Yes or no? Slow rolls. For them or against them?
I guess against, but I don't really care.
Who is your... Oh, okay. All right. So we'll save that one for next time. All right. We're going to let our proprietary algorithm
Sorry,
run
I'm
in
not
the
good
background.
at the no qualification answer.
Yeah, I think like you can tell that you're like, I want to give a very correct answer. You're like, I want to get at the truth of this. That's so funny.
I can see you're answering a question if it's like a scale of 0 to 10 with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're like 3.86.
Well, I want to encourage, if you're watching along in YouTube chat, please get your questions in. We're also going to be looking for players to names to play Stake Study Stack with Dr. K at the end of the show. So any questions, and get those names in for Stake Study Stack. And of course, we're also going to give away a free prize at the end of the show to support our food drive, our food bank raffle. So stick around. That's brought to you by RecPoker. It's going to be a lot of fun. Get active in the YouTube chat there, folks. So, well, here, actually, Joe, why don't you start us off, and then we've got a bunch of questions to get in through here.
Well, so I won the opportunity to speak to you first, Dr. K, because I also use a pseudonym when I'm online. And I'm also known as the other Dr. K now because you're here. My last name is Coolest. I'm not actually all that as much, but I go by Joe Cool PhD online with the very purpose of starting to try to obscure who I am, what I do, and so on for professional reasons. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist.
Okay, cool.
So, and actually I follow you online, and we had a little interaction about this on Blue Sky a few weeks ago. I guess my question to start with is, so when I read your bio, you call yourself primarily a filmmaker, but you're also a quantitative and qualitative theatrician. For the audience, what does that mean for you specifically, or at least in what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I more and more have been identified just sort of generically as a theorist. My background in academia was in critical theory, sort of philosophy in the ancient old school sort of sense. Mm-hmm. And what I was trained to do in the academic sense in terms of culture and society was theory, how to sort of understand the world through various kinds of different frameworks. And rather than being sort of a ideologue of one particular kind of methodology, what I was trained in was like all of them, or as many as I could learn. But I was in the humanities, which is often referred to as qualitative kind of work. Mm-hmm. My program was broadly interdisciplinary, and there were a lot of quantitative folks as well. But my background is in film, culture, literature. My undergraduate degrees are in English and film production. So culture and society have been sort of my big interests from an early age, but I was also always really good at math, actually, and that's what quantitative refers to, is usually the kinds of disciplines that are using more sort of traditionally scientific, mathematic kinds of it refers to kinds of work where there can be sort of known truths and objective facts sometimes in certain ways. I think less so than a lot of scientists like to think, but that's a topic for another day. And so, and poker is pretty heavily dominated by quantitative thinkers and quantitative thought and quantitative theory. And like, I love that. Like, I have gone really deep into poker math. In fact, most people don't know this about me because I'm not very well known, but I've made some major, actually, mathematical advances in poker math that have shocked me as someone who really only has high school algebra, but is just very naturally good at it, and just hasn't had extensive postgraduate training. And so I really love all of that, but to me, I always feel like that these are not I like to say that we live in an era of, I call it quantitative supremacy, which many people will have noticed by pushes in public discourse towards saying that only STEM matters, science, technology, engineering, that only the sciences really matter, that the humanities are worthless and don't add any value. And that's just an extremely ignorant and incorrect take. And I think that we need all of it, and that the sciences and STEM need the humanities and qualitative thinking, and that we also need facts and data and these sorts of things in the world too. So so I like to bring both together rather than prefer one methodology over another.
So if I can, you shoot me down if I'm wrong, right? And I'm trying to, because I have there's a lot of days when I start explaining what I do for a living, and people are like, I don't understand still. It's as if you're using the humanities to create the questions or theories that necessarily could be tested out by necessarily a scientific method, but you also have the math background to create the models that could do that test. Is that a fair brief summation?
I think that's a fair assessment. It's also about how you approach questions. So, for example, the major advances that I made in poker math are around bounty tournaments. And the way I was able to make them actually was simply because I come from a background in the humanities where I question all paradigms and I question all assumptions. And so there were some things about tournament theory that people were making where they were going down one path because they understood it in this way, but they hadn't stepped back and looked at the bigger picture and realized that actually this thing that you're talking about can be this and that. It's actually two things at the same time. So, for example, the start of the tournament is both a stage of the tournament, but it's also no, I'm not explaining that very well. Sorry. Yeah, I'll stop there. Hopefully.
No, but I think that, I do think that draws upon something that I thought was very interesting in looking through as much of the stuff online I could find, which is your article on the Wordle ideas about how to play poker. I thought was actually very good, both from a conceptual psychological standpoint, but also from, how, doing the Wordle can be more successful in thinking about it in alternative ways than just the GTO approach. I did solve that. I went and solved the Wordle, by the way. I was very proud of myself that I got there. That you referenced. But,
nice.
But so people haven't had a chance to read it. It's on. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of your.
It's
site.
The Poker Mix. PokerMix.
The Poker Mix, yeah. There are a number of good articles, and that one talks about taking a much more holistic approach. One, having fun, which is certainly on par with what recreational poker players want to do. It doesn't have to be the struggle to the death, that you got to grind out every single dollar of EV. But also just thinking about it as I don't have to sit and memorize charts in order to get better at the game, that there are other approaches to it, which I think is true for Wordle, but it's also very true for poker.
Or you start with memorizing the charts and then you go from there. That's how I like to do it. No, but yeah, it's it's a really huge thing. As I was a pro for a short time many years ago. It was more than 10 years ago that I stopped being a pro. And so I've been around and I've studied a lot, and I study as an enthusiast, as a recreational player. I study probably more than most pros do, and so I've bought a lot of courses. I've studied with a lot of the training sites. I like to get around. I like to hear as many opinions and ideas as possible. I like to learn. I like to learn everything, and there's a really common sort of mantra, especially for people who are pros and who are trying to tell people who want to be pros how to become a pro, that that it's all about grinding, that it's all about putting in the volume, that volume. You gotta play whether you feel like it or not. You gotta do, and I just disagree with all of that. And in addition, that it's all about learning, that like study the fundamentals, and once you learn everything, which that is impossible, of course, and everybody who studied enough has been studying poker for 20 years would know at this point that you can never learn everything. Which is what's so great about poker. You can spend a lifetime studying it and you're never going to master it. And this is the perspective that top pros like Ike Haxton take, and I find that to be true. And I think if I could solve it, then I wouldn't be playing poker anymore, because I'd be poor. It's that challenge that actually keeps me going. But what I realized when I came back to poker sort of more seriously around 2019 was, after a while, was I had learned so much and I still wasn't having the results that I wanted to. And I really appreciate Jason Su's work on this, because what I came to realize is that I really see two sides of poker in the same way I see two sides of sort of methodologies of thinking, and qualitative and quantitative. And this bringing it back, this maps onto it, which is that, so there's the quantitative side, which is learning your ranges, studying your charts, learning the math, learning pot odds, learning how to calculate values of bounties, all this sort of very precise mathematical work that you can do, theoretical work, all this sort of stuff. But then there's the psychological side. There's the showing up and performing. There's actually executing on everything you know. And there's actually staying motivated and present and aware and alert and focused while you're at the table for long periods of time. And those are two completely different skill sets, actually. So about a year and a half ago, I actually stopped my it's not that I don't do fundamental study anymore. I do, but I switched from spending like 80% of my poker time doing studying to like 10 to 20%, like 40% on performance, psychology, mental game, and play, and then spending more time actually just playing. And what I realized too was that actually, this was the big realization. What I realized that was making my game suffer was that every time I was in a spot, I was sitting there thinking, what am I supposed to do? I was trying to remember the theory, remember the charts, instead of just being in the moment and going with my instincts and having fun, which was what brought me into poker in the first place. 20 years ago, I had really forgotten how to have fun, and it was making me miserable. And so now, now my mantra is, when I'm in a spot, is instead of thinking, what am I supposed to do? What's the play here? I think instead, what would be the most fun thing to do here? And then secondly, especially if I'm struggling with a decision, what's the decision that no matter what happens, whether I'm right or wrong, that I can live with? And
I think
focus on that. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that's a great way to go about it. It mirrors a lot of when I came in. Obviously, as a psychologist, I have some understanding of the theory of behavior, but I'm also kind of good at math. I've done research. I've gotten through that, and so it fascinated me to approach it from a mathematical standpoint. And then trying to put all those things together is really hard work. It's hard to kind of pull from all of those things.
Yeah.
But the thing that struck me very early on was, I was like, why does every site that I come to is telling me that if I don't put in 100 hours a day of grinding all these things and only play this way and get every single dollar out of this game, that I'm not really achieving anything? Because, well, then why do I want to do it? Because it's not going to be fun. It's going to be a job, and I have one, so.
Yeah.
So I did want to follow up real quick too, is that one of the other thing is that we kind of interacted a little bit on Blue Sky about the fact that we don't actually reveal things. So what drove you to that decision to say, well, I don't really want to tell the professional side that I play poker? Because I thought that you had some interesting statements about that in our. You may not remember the interaction.
You mean like mean like not wanting to like publicize my involvement in poker, like outside of
Yeah,
poker.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think probably everybody has different experiences, but especially for me, coming from an academic background where there's all sorts of like proprieties and like things that I don't really believe in. But I mean, it's not like I'm in the academic world anymore. But I spent a lot of time there, and a lot of my friends are there. I spent a lot of time in like really, lefty queer artists kinds of spaces, and it's not it's I mean, probably some people have more issues with like coming from communities that like have like moral problems with gambling, and I don't know that that's exactly it, but it is somewhat related, it seems like. Or there's a sort of like looking down on it, or like people lose their lose their opinions on me, or on the flip side, people get really weird about it and really interested, and then they look me up and they see numbers like that I've cashed for over $1 million and stuff like that, and then they think I'm super rich, which, as we know, is like not how that's over 20 years, and that's not how it works. That doesn't include the buy-ins, right?
Yeah.
I am a profitable poker player. I have made money at poker, but a lot of most of my biggest scores are from a long time ago, and they were backed, so I didn't make all that money. In addition to that, not all being so like people don't understand, right? Everybody who plays poker seriously knows that like people outside of poker just don't understand, and so it's just sort of easier for me to try to keep my life separate. Or not put that in the foreground, because it just doesn't help me in my life outside of poker.
I took a little different approach. I mean, first of all, I consulted with an attorney to make sure I could do all this stuff and come on a podcast and say who I was. And he was like, well, as long as you're playing at such low stakes, you're fine. Nobody will ever will care about that. But I have a speech ready. The minute, and I just what I said on Blue Sky is I say, I like to play poker, and then I know I have to go into it's really a skill game that's involved in the math, and I don't really lose money, and it's like you're explaining yourself to the world, because there are biases about the game, some of which are not always necessarily not deserved, but
they're both true and not true. Like poker is a skill game, but it is also gambling for a lot of people, and after Black Friday, for those of us who have been around that long, we know there was a real big push to represent poker as a skill game because of legal reasons and the UIGA and like all that sort of stuff. And I think that was appropriate. And it's really important to me too, as someone who actually fell into gambling addiction and stuff like that the skill part of the game be what's pushed, that the educational parts, the social parts, and learning how and a focus on play that doesn't involve scamming people, making like when I go to play, I want to have fun, and I want everybody else to have fun too, and that's whether or not I win or whether they win. Like that has been my goal, actually, and where I take my baseline is, if I lose, am I still having fun? Because if I lose and I'm miserable, then I can't play poker, because you lose most of the time, especially as a tournament player. Or if not like a lot of the time, at the very least. And so all of this is extremely important to me. And so I get really riled up when people start representing the game as super gambling, the kinds of images about scamming and abusive players that go, those kinds of clips that go viral, I think really do a disservice to all of us. And it's a big part of the reason why I don't want to be known as a poker player. They embarrass me. And they don't represent what I stand for, and I don't want to be confused with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So go ahead, Jim. I interrupted you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, this is good. This is exactly some of the stuff I wanted to get into with Dr. K today. So we follow each other on socials. I've noticed, like, over the last while, you've been posting a lot about getting the most out of your time at the tables, having limited time playing as a non-professional, as a recreational player, or as like a semi-pro, or however you want to phrase it. And you mentioned sort of at the top of the show here about this kind of emphasis on the playing experience. What do you think recreational players are doing wrong? Like, how have you evolved your stance on this? Like, what do you feel like are some like tips that you could give less experienced players for how to maximize their time?
I can share what I do, and I will share that. But off the top, I just want to say that I think the biggest mistake that everybody in poker makes is not focusing on what works for them in every aspect, both in terms of style of play, studying how they structure their time, what they choose to play. There's so much trying to get top players to tell them what they do and then mimic, and then they say what they do, but that's what works for them. And through trial and error, I've learned a lot, and it's taken a long time for me to learn about what works for me. And a lot of what works for a lot of other players does not work for me. And I'm sure a lot of what works for me does not work for other players. So that's the first thing that I would say, is to take everything you hear about poker as a suggestion and think about how it fits or doesn't fit with how you want to approach the game. And the second part, I think on off the top too, is paying attention to everything about the game that impacts the rest of your life in negative ways, and seek to minimize or do away with them, or maybe reevaluate whether you should play poker at all. Because that was after having trouble with gambling addiction and then coming back into poker, that was my fine line. Was I had to figure out how to play poker in a healthy way, fun way, in a way that didn't make the rest of my life worse. And that was, and if I couldn't do that, I had to quit, because there's no point. And I'm glad I figured it out, and I think it really helped me work through a lot of my addiction issues, actually, by really working on that. And so for me, that's been really helpful. But for a lot of people, that wouldn't be. And that's really important. So, but in terms of making the most of your time at the table, so I focus a lot because I'm pretty severely chronically ill. I know I mentioned to you, Jim, and I sometimes talk about it, but I don't talk about my personal life as much on socials anymore. But I'm pretty severely disabled and can't do much these days. Even like I'm sort of reclining in a chair right now, because even standing up and even sitting up can cause major health problems for me. So of course, going to sit at the poker table, which I try to do when I can, but I can't do very much of it. And I can't even be on the computer playing a lot. I just don't have I get tired too easily, and I don't have enough good hours in the day. But I can oftentimes put together 4 good hours, and usually know, like, you know what? Okay, I'm feeling good, and I'll probably be okay for the next 4 hours. Now, as a tournament player, that is pretty hard, because a lot of tournaments don't last for only 4 hours. Cash games, you can come in and out, and so I have been playing more cash lately, because that suits that style a little bit more. But I love tournaments, and I'm a tournament player first and foremost. So I figured out ways to be able to play sessions in 4 hours. And what I do is I play turbos and hypers. And what I do is, when I start a session, and I don't I'll target tournaments and things that I want to play, but I only play if I'm actually feeling well. And so a lot of times I'll just because I never know when I'm going to feel well, it'll be like, oh, I feel well. Okay. And so I just, I load up, get on the computer, load up the games and see what's out there. And I also restrict the number of tables I play. I don't play more than 6. So I will look around and I will see what are good tournaments that have good prize pools that are at max late reg, the bigger tournaments. Yep. And I'll max late reg those. And then I'll look in terms, unfortunately, that means, even though I love bounties and I know bounties sort of better than everything else, I don't get to play them as much, because bounties you can't max late reg. That's my tip for you right there. It's bounties that come into play at the start of the tournament. Mystery bounty tournaments you can, because they don't come into play in the beginning. Or tournaments where it comes in later, you can max late. But I've done the math, and I have some articles out on GTO Wizard blog, and a couple more. I actually have 2 articles specifically about late reg that I thought would be out by now, but aren't. one on regular tournaments and one on PKOs. And it's extremely unprofitable to max late reg bounties. So I don't do that. And I'll look for bounty, turbo, or hypo tournaments. Tournaments that one feature I like on GG that I wish others would do was they actually say how long they think the tournaments will last. So that's really helpful for me. If it says it's going to last for another 7 hours, I don't reg.
Mhm.
But as an experienced player at this point, I can sort of tell how long most tournaments will last. And PokerStars Ontario has really good tournaments that are designed for recreational players that mostly don't go more than 4 hours. So I'm able to play maybe like 1,000 tournaments a year online is what I've been averaging lately. And with my ROI, I would have an expectation of winning 15,000 to 20,000 a year, and that's what happened last year. I'm running below EV this year, but I made it all up at the end of the year last year, so I guess maybe that'll happen again this year, or maybe it'll happen with live. I've had a lot of really deep runs and I've had some major spots come up in the 5 major spots come up in the last 8 months where I've run really bad and not gotten better than 7th at the final table, unfortunately. So I'm right there, and it's really working for me to do this. I'm playing low volume, but a very low variance and winning player. I don't have big downswings. Most of my downswings these days actually look like either breaking even or slightly losing or even slightly winning. And I've put a lot of effort into figuring out how I can do that. And that's by paying attention to what my body can handle and not trying to be a 20-year-old guy who can play for 20 hours and be fine. I can't do that. And that's fine. And so really taking seriously my own limitations and playing to them and maximizing what I can do in that. And that's going to be different for everybody, which is why I want to keep flagging this. But I think the lessons in terms of something that recreational players sort of all have in common usually is low volume. We're usually not able to play as much as professional players. And the fact of the matter is, I highly recommend if you play tournaments to check out a site called Prime Dope, the Prime Dope variance calculator, and play around with that, because what it turns out in terms of the mathematics of variance is that there's actually 3 primary components to what your variance is going to be. One is volume. That is one, but it's not the only one. The other 2 are ROI and field size. So I keep track of my stats on SharpScope. I look at them and I pay attention to all these things to sort of maximize my efficiency and my profits as best I can in the time that I have. And so I focus on having a high ROI, which I do. And you can't change your ROI in certain ways, but you can in terms of game selection, like playing softer tournaments rather than playing like a daily 100 that only has regs in it. Playing tournaments that are much softer will produce different rates in ROI. So there's things that you can do, but studying is a big part of that. I'm a winning player because I've studied and played a lot, and I have a lot of experience, and that takes a lot of time. But it's also that game selection, and part of it too. And this is a little bit competing because ROI is higher in larger field tournaments, but the variance is higher. And because obviously you're gonna win a 100 player tournament more than you're gonna win a 1,000 player tournament, and especially more than you're gonna win a 10,000 player tournament, like the main event. So my average, I know from my stats, my average field size is about 100. And so that makes it so that I just don't have protracted empty, like I just don't have long down with a high ROI combined with a low field size. I win about, like, I've looked at the math. I win about 2.3% of the tournaments that I play. I final table about 10% of the tournaments that I play. So with an average field size of 100 playing 1,000 games, I can expect to win 20 tournaments over the year. I can expect to final table 150 to 200, which means I'm getting a lot of practice at all the stages of the tournaments. And more than that, I'm having fun because it's not like if I were to play only like 1,000 to 5,000 player tournaments with my schedule, like I would have years long downswings. Like, it's just not possible, even though I'm a high ROI. And then I would bank something maybe for $100,000, but like that wouldn't be, to lose for years and years and years would not be fun for me. I don't want to do it. Low variance is fun for me, so I focus on that, and it's really working for me. And I like final tabling a lot. And every now and again, I final table a big one, and I have a shot at. Like I said, I've had 5 spots in the last 8 months. And one of these days again, it's going to happen. I'm going to have a big score, and it's coming soon. Hopefully next month in Montreal, but we'll see.
Yeah, I love that. I know we've got some other questions, but I got to jump in here for one sec. So do you find that so we're both players in Ontario, and Ontario is geofence, so we can only play online against other Ontario players for the most part. That feels like that might actually be perfectly suited for the kind of games that you're trying to find, right? Like smaller field size. Is it actually an advantage to you, I think, to be able to play in Ontario with that kind of demographic available to you?
There's advantages and downsides. Like I said about, especially PokerStars Ontario games, they're kind of my sweet spot. They're like the perfect field sizes. They have good guarantees. They're kind of dead when there's not a series going on, but they're running a lot of good series with good guarantees. And I really enjoy, and I tend to be like near the top of the leaderboard every single time one of these series comes along. So that's where I'm making most of my money online, and I really enjoy those. But the problem is that nobody plays anything besides Hold'em in Ontario, and I'm a mixed game player. And I love Hold'em. I've studied a lot of Hold'em. I play a lot of Hold'em. I'm very good at Hold'em. Love No Limit Hold'em. Nothing against it, but I like everything. I get bored easily. I want to have fun, and I like playing mixed games, and I like to play them sometimes. And so that was a lot of my strategy for smaller, like mixing in a lot of smaller field sizes that just sort of happened because that was what I was playing back when I was a pro and when whatever. The mixed games tend to have smaller field sizes just structurally. Fewer people are playing them. And so when you go to a big series, like WSOP or stuff like that, if you're playing a lot of the mixed games, you're going to have a lot better results, not only because skill edges are higher, but because of lower variance. So that's another. But I don't get to play those anymore for the most part. Right. There's very few mixed games that are. They sometimes offer a few of them during the series. They don't even offer all. I don't remember the last time they've offered Badugi. Oh, except for occasionally a $5 pot limit Badugi, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Nobody plays pot limit Badugi. Who cares? It's ridiculous. So I really wish I could still play the old, the international, scoops and W coops and stuff like that. That's, I used to do very well in them. As far as I know, I have the most titles still of women in poker in those events, and I wish I could be still competing with the Benny Glazers and stuff like that and show them how it's done. But I can't. So I like it and I don't. Is the answer.
Now, Lorianne's got a question. Before we jump to her, I just want to remind our YouTube chatters, get those questions in. And again, we're going to be playing Stake Study Stack with Dr. K at the end, so we're looking for some suggestions. Also, if you want to support what we're doing here by a super chat or a super comment or a super sticky, we do share a portion of all our YouTube donations with a local food bank. And so I'd encourage folks to do that. And you can always find out other ways to help us out by going to rec.poker/support. We obviously love it when people join our premium membership. And if $22 a month is too much, consider supporting us on Patreon, where for $10 a month, you can get audio versions of all of our training materials downloaded to your phone as though they were a podcast. So lots of ways to help us out, lots of ways to help out some local food banks and get involved in the YouTube chat otherwise. All right, Lorianne, please, let's continue.
No worries. Just jumping in here, I want to say first and foremost, I appreciate your honesty. It's refreshing. But I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about your other thing that you like to do, which is filmmaking. Now, over the last 20-something odd years, they've talked about Rounders 2. Will there or won't there be a Rounders 2? As far as the poker community is concerned, Game of Gold came out and was well received in the poker community. And now PokerStars has brought back the Loose Cannon as a show. But I'd like your opinion as a filmmaker. What, if anything, do you think is missing from the next great poker movie or show?
I guess I can answer that more broadly, and it sort of ties into the recent, what I consider main event fiasco, which is that I'm not a fan of the trend towards media treating poker like a reality show. I think that's going in the absolute wrong direction in terms of the whole skill game gambling kind of dynamic. Those kinds of things encourage wild behavior, gambling, blow-ups, people doing things that harm them. And that is like just all the wrong direction that I don't think it's not good for me. And I don't think it's actually good for poker as a whole. And I think that people really need to make the connection between what's happened with the new tax law in the US coming into effect, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense in a lot of things, except if you remember that the U.S. is founded on Puritan sort of morality laws, and it's not actually founded on a principle of freedom of religion. It's a freedom of imposing religion on others. And when we represent poker in that way, we're playing into those those evangelical sort of fundamentalist right-wing leanings that say all gambling is bad. And when we make poker a gambling game, then it falls into that bucket, and people shouldn't be surprised that it's not treated like chess, which I wish it were treated more as. What I love, and what I think people love about Rounders, and what I think people have loved about shows and movies that have represented poker well, has been focusing on the strategy aspect, in the same way that people really love really like whodunit detective, Sherlock Holmes like kind of genre. Like poker is that way, sort of. Poker has that going for it in terms of making inferences, logical deductions, going down the rabbit hole and trying to figure out the best play, the weirdest play, what'll put people off guard, how to push and pull people in the direction, get them to do what you want them to do in a hand. All these kinds of things are really have rich depths to explore, especially for fiction, but also for documentary and nonfiction. And I wish that people would focus on all of that a lot more. And I think that's what's most interesting to me and what I'd like to see more of.
Thank you.
Lorianne, why don't you continue?
Do you want me to do it? Okay, so I was going to say maybe Joe would go next, since he definitely has an interesting question, but I can continue. If you don't mind elaborating, you tweeted something about the impact of the grinder winning the main event not being lucky for the poker community. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, and it's to some degree. For those of you who don't know, after his PPC win and after the main event win, Grindr chose to make it very political by going on and on about the IDF and Israel, which is currently committing a genocide in Palestine. And in fact, news out the last few days has been that the starvation regime that they put on Palestinians, sorry, I might cry, it's really upsetting.
I'm sorry.
Millions of people are starving to death today. And they're being deliberately starved. And there is food. You guys support food banks, so I want to take this angle. There is food sitting outside the borders, waiting for them, that is being denied to them by the Israelis. And that is what Michael the Grinder Mizrachi stands for. Genocide, mass death, and the starvation of women and children. And the news coming out today is that actually because the starvation has been going on for so long, because the genocide has been going, while they've been being bombed and murdered and massacred by conventional weapons as well, that the stage of the famine has entered where it's possible that 85% of a 2 million plus population may not actually, even if help could get in right now, it might actually be too late. Because there's a point at which people have starved so much that refeeding becomes an extremely dangerous process that most people don't survive, and that they're at that stage right now. We're talking about millions of people possibly dying in the next days and weeks. And this guy got up on stage and used his platform to promote this. So I'll just stop there. But I think we're already talking about the bad the bad images that are coming out in terms of the cheating scandals, the both solver cheating, but also collusion and stuff like that, the gambling, the gambling messages. But to associate genocide with poker and have that be the face of poker, that's a whole other level that poker is going to have a reckoning with. And I hope this wasn't too political, but I think I don't think starvation and genocide should be political. Never again is supposed to be never again. And it's happening on our screens right now. So
I'm sorry.
Sorry to get so emotional.
I just put in our chat, I apologize. I was not aware that he had done that. I literally was not. I would not have question that or open that can of worms. I'm so sorry. I had literally no idea because I hadn't seen that. So I apologize.
I mean,
for
people
that.
are being criminalized and disappeared and deported and murdered for saying that there's a genocide happening and Israelis are doing it. They're called anti-Semites. They're fired from their jobs. This is what's happening in Canada and the US. People who even say that this is wrong are being painted as terrorists, while people who are actually committing genocide are supposedly morally virtuous people or something. Like, it's completely upside down and it needs to stop.
Well, that I was aware of. I wasn't aware of the statements by Mizrahi. So I'm just kind of like, again, I apologize. I had no idea.
No,
now it makes sense.
about, but I don't know. I don't really know how to. Mm-hmm. So hopefully this is productive in some way. But
I think it's always good to provoke the conversation, and we talk about here all the time about how feeding hungry people shouldn't be a political stance. So left or right, up or down, black or white, like people that are hungry, we're big supporters in helping them out and finding food for people that need it. I know we're coming into this with the expectation of sort of having this conversation with you, Dr. K, about how poker needs to manage its image better with people outside of the poker world. And I think that's sort of like the context that we're taking into this. We have players who are reaching the highest levels of the game that aren't necessarily good models for new players. Joe, you had a question taking off on this a little bit.
I mean, I was going to ask you about Kassouf, but I think to some degree that kind of has probably run its course a little bit. People have opinions one way or the other. I know that you had strong opinions of it, but I guess I'm going to broaden the question out a little bit. Is that when I came into poker, what I experienced was quite a shock in terms of the outlaw view of what poker players were supposed to be, and a romanticization of essentially the things that you and I have to hide in order to be considered, serious academics and things like that. And I'm interested in your thoughts in terms of, some of the opinions of many of the people that play broadly towards this cowboy kind of nefarious presentation. Am I making sense? I'm not sure I phrased that well.
I'm not quite following you.
Yeah. So the outlaw persona of the poker player has existed, and some people say it's actually why people come to play. So when you come into contact with groups like RecPoker, where you don't necessarily have that I think is sometimes what people are reacting to. It's not just the fact that you might lose money in that context. It's more that you're one of those outlaw renegades. And I find that there are many who actually lean into that in terms of their play style. And so Kassouf is clearly trying to be, he called himself I don't want to get into that because I don't want to draw too much politics into a poker podcast, but basically, what I'll say is he started in 2016, right? And he was taking a particular persona at that time at the table in order to make people angry. And I'm curious on your thoughts about that whole concept for poker players in general, because that's not who you are, is my read of the situation.
Well, I mean, I think what I do identify with and what brings a lot of people, professionals and not, into poker is that noise coming on my end, or is it coming from somebody else?
Yeah, I'm just not sure. We might try muting some of the panelists and see if
I don't think it's coming from my end, but I'm not sure.
No, keep it up.
Sorry, bad sound is distracting for everybody. That's why I got my mic out. That's a filmmaker tip. Sound is way more important than video. Is the idea of independence, and poker has always given me that. Like, as a neurodivergent person, as a person who doesn't really fit into capitalist society or doesn't want to, poker has always been there in small or large ways to provide income and provide other opportunities for me. And I think that resonates with most people who play poker, especially seriously, and especially if they're those who become pros. So identify with that part, but I do think that, it's a game that has rules that should be followed. And I don't think that disrupting other players, I don't want to make it about Kassouf in particular, because he's not the only one, although the egregiousness with which he behaved and the way that it was allowed to continue and was platformed, I think is outrageous. But I don't think that anybody at the table in any way should be allowed to make other players uncomfortable in order to get an edge. That's not playing the game. And it is against the rules. And I think that it should be rigorously enforced. And quite frankly, seeing that on TV, I haven't been to WSOP in over 10 years. And after what I just witnessed, I have no FOMO. I don't want any, these are such badly run events. And this happened in Toronto. This has happened in other places. They just don't care about actually making a good experience for the players and enforcing the rules and keeping a fair game. And that's all I want, is a fair game. And I don't think that anybody in the room with Kassouf gets a fair game. It gives him an edge, and that's not fair.
And it's interesting, I think, because I find when I'm playing poker, I can be a jerk. I just ask Jim. He'll let you know. If I want to be a jerk, I can be. But I don't, because I'm in a public place playing a public game, and everybody should feel comfortable in terms of being at the table and being able to play a very complicated game. If I want to throw somebody, I'm good enough now, I can throw you off your game by talking and saying rude things or things that I know will bother people. And I think for women in particular, or from individuals within the transgender community or those representing the non-binaries, it's not very far to go to try to say those things. But you know what? We shouldn't. And what worries me about the poker community is sometimes they will not say should. Ask yourself when you're at the poker table, should I say this? Would I do this if I was not sitting at a poker table? And if the answer is no, then maybe it's something we shouldn't do at a game in a public place. But that's just my 2 cents.
I think it also needs to be said that this is a particular issue of concern to women and and probably other marginalized people at the table, because white men in particular tend to, I see so much of this. Oh, they're just talking. That's not just talking. I'm sorry. And women know this, because when men say things that are threatening or put us off or make us uncomfortable, the other things are happening in women's minds than just, oh, they're just talking, or they're just an asshole, or whatever. It's a threat for most women. And whether or not that's actually a threat at the table or not, that's an instinctive reaction. And so this kind of behavior is particularly off-putting for women. While I've noticed on social media, there's been sort of, there's lots of guys who think it's funny or like it or whatever. I don't think that they actually want to go and sit down at a table with it personally, but that's not what they're thinking about. But I see almost zero disagreement amongst women about whether or not this is okay or not. And that's really telling. And so in terms of, for me, it's just indisputable that this does not create a welcoming atmosphere for new players. It does not bring new players into the game. It does not keep people in the game. It drives them out of it. And do you want new players in the game? Do you want new money coming into the economy, or don't you? Because you don't get to have it both ways. And it just, it's just a really, 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 really bad look. And I personally am choosing to support the venues and tours that have made clear commitments to not tolerating any sort of verbal harassment of any kind. And I'm talking about the Irish Poker Tour. I'm talking about Playground in Montreal. I'm talking about places that are strict and take no BS and run clean, fair games where they don't tolerate any of this. And that's worth traveling. So Irish Open actually happens at the same time as WSOP Toronto. And I went to that this year, and the player experience was so bad. The floor does not give a crap about anything. They don't enforce the rules. People were actually taking chips from in front of me and putting them in the pot. It was absolutely outrageous, and they wouldn't do anything about any of it. And I'm done. So I'm skipping it next year, and I'm actually going to fly to Ireland instead of play at the local tournaments, because I'm so fed up with how WSOPC and the local venue that was hosting the events that mostly was causing this was doing it. And I think that's what we need to do as players is like also a lot of Triton Tour, a lot of places are really focusing on the player experience, having parties, making more social events, making a more fun atmosphere for the entire event, as well as creating a fair and safe place for everybody to play. And like, that's what I want to support. And the more we support that, the more pressure that other operators are going to have to be to level up their game as well.
Yeah, I do want to highlight one thing real quick, and then I'll pass it back on to Jim, but is that, you know, this idea of threat that you said, I think that for a lot of men, they don't always realize what is threatening to a woman. If somebody takes chips off of my stack, I'm not threatened by them. I might get into a fight with them eventually about it, but I'm not threatened by them. But for a woman who is not going to be able to take that step up, and if you have, as a man, if you are questioning what I'm having to say, walk behind a woman just coincidentally at a mall for about 20, 30 feet and see what percentage of them reach into their phone and suddenly magically have a phone call, right? And they're not getting a phone call. They're scared because they don't know why you're following. If somebody follows me for that distance, if a woman follows me, I'm not worried that I'm going to get abducted. And you may say that it's irrational. And statistically, it probably is, but that doesn't reduce the fact that it's a much
not actually.
Well, in terms of the number
statistically,
of
women who reject men, women who reject men face extreme amounts of violence, up to and including murder, right on the spot.
I would agree with you in that. I would say somebody that's being followed in terms of just the number of people.
Right.
That's unlikely. But what I would say is that it's so much higher than for men. It's not unrealistic to pick up that phone. And when I see that phone come up, I immediately veer off and I go a different way because I know I've made them upset. And if you're at the poker table and you're thinking to yourself, they need to toughen up, you do not understand the problems that they face, and you should look into it more. So, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll just say one more quick thing about that is, you know, especially if you go back and look at the footage of Kassouf when he was sitting next to Vanessa Cade, he was fucking sexually, he was sexually harassing her the entire time.
It's okay.
The constant, like, oh, let's have dinner. Like, he was nonstop trying to pressure her to have dinner with him, nonstop bullying her to like spend time with him afterwards. Like, he wasn't doing this to most of the other men at the table. Like, he didn't do this he never did this to any of the other men. This is why I call it harassment. And so, yeah, he doesn't harass them. He harasses the men at the table in other ways by trying to make them uncomfortable, tilt them, put them off their game or whatever. The women at the table, he was also sexually harassing. And this especially should not be allowed. It was on TV. He should have been shut down right then. Outrageous. Just absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think we're going to see a lot of backlash, I think, from the poker community against the decision makers that are choosing to put this in the front of the stream, that this is the person that we want to have on camera, that this is the ambassadorial experience that we want for poker fans to be modeling after.
And that's Poker Go's fault, but it was WSOP's fault that they didn't give him sanctions and penalties way earlier in the tournament. I was for the penalties that they gave him later on, but I don't think there would have been as big of a problem if they had actually shut him down right away, like all the good run casinos and tours do. And that is the problem. It was obviously a problem way earlier in the tournament, and they didn't give him penalties or rein him in the slightest until much later. And that's what's unacceptable to me, and why I blame both of them.
Right. I agree 100%. I think they created their own monster, and he kind of just went with it, was loving the attention. What got me was when they had the open seat on one of the feature tables. Rick and I were watching, and they kept the seat open, and he miraculously grew the open seat. And I thought, come on, what are the odds of him drawing the open seat? It may have actually been, but it was just, and he's literally like, even with Cabral, I could mute the TV and still watch. But with Kassouf, I just could not even watch him on mute. That's how it was to me. It was just, I just found him unwatchable.
Yeah. So I expect we're going to see that topic explored. I'm doing a series of articles with Poker.org talking about like the negative impact on new players that kind of behavior represents, and how we have to do a better job of choosing who we're putting in front of the cameras, who we're putting on the streams when it comes to this. Because I know And people say, oh, it's better than having just a bunch of robots in there with headphones and sunglasses and hoodies. And it's like, there's a difference, but like, even if, but there's got to be some positive galvanizing people. It can't just be people that are galvanizing for the sake of making a scene and being provocative. Like, there are fun, exciting people. I've played with them. Some of them are on this show. That like it's not impossible to find positive, fun, exciting people that play poker and putting them on camera. And how disheartening must it be to the other players on the other tables as you're in the WSOP main event and you're in the top 100 and there's like 7 or 8 or 9 tables left and you're on another table and you are thinking to yourself, boy, the Poker Go streamers, the people in charge of that, think so little of me and my poker story and the other people at this table right now that they would rather put William fucking Kassouf on the stream and have that be the spotlight that we're shining. That's how little they think of me and the other people
Can you
approaching the pinnacle of my poker career.
No.
Right.
Ignore the top players and focus the entire tournament on the 256 seed in tennis, or while ignoring Serena Williams, or like what, like. Sorry, I'm not up to date on tennis.
My concern is that when I saw the chat, and like I said, because I try not to pay attention to chat because it's so toxic, but how many people in the chat actually enjoy the antics? And I'm just thinking, once again, here's a microcosm of the world as a whole, that when you say about bringing new people in, how many new people have watched this because they were doing the free view and trying to get people to watch that haven't played live poker, think that this is the way you're supposed to act when you go play live. Like I said, that's the thing. When you come to feature people, I get it. It can be boring to watch the GTO. I don't like the term nerds, but the best players in the world. But as I also like to say, there's a lot of hands in between pocket aces and 7-deuce offsuit. There's a lot in the middle that you can be featuring other than, either someone that's boring, like watching paint dry, or watching that. It was, which I thought was just a train wreck. But like I said, it got them. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think Triton is doing a really good job, actually, and I don't think it's true that people don't like watching the GTO robots. I love watching them.
I love watching
when Triton comes on. I have the TV on like 12, 14 hours a day, and I may not be paying attention the whole time. I have to do other things, but like I'm just like, as much as I can be glued. It's fascinating to watch. Yes. And there's the GTO players, the best players in the world, who you get to see how they're playing, which is fun and exciting, I think. But then they also like have the VIPs and stuff like that. I mean, Gambledore is a perfect example of an exciting, fresh personality who mixes things up, is not a GTO bot or whatever, but he's not sitting there harassing everybody at the table. He's making jokes. He's getting along with everybody. That, like, he's doing wild and crazy things that are fun and exciting to watch, to see how the GTO bots deal with them. But like, this is a story. This is a character. This is all happening without any of the harassment, without you making you want to bash your TV, without that like makes poker look fun and exciting to play. And like, I would want to go and play at that table. You could not pay, I think people have asked it. You could not pay me $1 million to go sit at a table for a day and play with Will Kassouf. I wouldn't do it. I actually wouldn't do it.
Well, I gotta admit, I might take $1 million. I got,
everyone has their price.
Some people probably do it for $1 million. I probably wouldn't, but like
$1 million in one.
Right. It might depend on the amount of time. You have to think of it as torture. So I guess it's me the amount of time I think I could withstand it without permanent damage.
So I just want to say that I would sit and watch Jim Reid play poker for hours on end at the table, because I've heard that's a riot, even if you don't like sandwiches.
Even if you don't, we do have a good time. So I want to. We're obviously going to go long here because like we've got a whole bunch more questions. Dr. K, I think we're going to take a couple more questions. I think we're going to have to ask you to come back sometime and get into some more of this here if we can find a good time for you this fall. Yeah, excellent. So I just want to remind our YouTube chatters. We're going to do our raffle soon at the end of the show. So all you have to do to enter is to just type the words food bank into the YouTube chat there, and you will be entered into our draft. And I just want to say that, like, the reason why we do this is we are always fighting the war against food insecurity here at RecPoker. And whether we kind of mentioned this earlier, there's a lot of people that need more help today putting food on the table. Some people in your own backyard, some of your neighbors, people in your own community who you might be surprised that need some help. It's true. And it's never been harder for your average person to feed themselves and their loved ones and their families. So just if you're watching this live, if you're listening online, if you're listening to the podcast, just press pause, Google food banks near me, and you'll find a place that can benefit from a few dollars out of your pocket, some volunteer hours out of your week, or some non-perishable food items from your own pantry. And again, if you're coming to our Running Aces, our RecPoker weekend at Running Aces next weekend on August 1st and 2nd, please do bring up to 4 non-perishable food items that you can use to add on to your stack in one of the Saturday tournaments. You can find out more about that at runaces.com.
Cool.
Yeah. So I I love the shout out to the Irish Poker Open. I think that's probably my favorite poker festival in the world. They do such a good job.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm so going next year if I'm well enough.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can't recommend it enough. And you also mentioned the Playground Poker Club, which is probably my favorite poker room, which is right around the corner
Fantastic.
for you and I, which is nice. You and I both kind of grew up in the poker world in Toronto. Why does Toronto suck so much for poker? Like, it's got a critical mass of people. It's got disposable income. We finally got a card room in town, and it's a rake trap, and it's full of, like, they don't respect their players. I don't recommend playing there. What's been your experience coming up over the last 20 years in the poker scene in Toronto?
So I actually didn't come up in Toronto. I came up in San Francisco. So I was playing Lucky Chances was my home for, probably the first 10 years or so until I moved to Toronto. In fact, for those of you who saw him on the I shouldn't give him a shout out, but it's just too funny. Pat Lyons was somebody that I played with nonstop back in the day, and he's still exactly the same. I just thought that was kind of funny.
You mean the amazing Pat Lyons?
The not world famous but
Yeah.
locally
Well, that's right.
notorious in San
World
Francisco.
famous.
Pat
That's right.
Lyons.
It is the world famous. Yes, I misspoke.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And he, he was kind of difficult to play with, but I mean, he was nothing like a Kassouf or anything like that. Like we got a lot. Like I he didn't like me because I crushed him all the time. But yeah, so I actually started playing Limit Hold'em and Limit 08, and then some No Limit Hold'em at Lucky Chances in like 2002, 2003. And then I graduated into playing their dailies. I did very well in their tournament series and dailies for a very long time. And then I moved here and there was nothing.
Right. Yeah.
But I was mostly an online. I was mostly an online tournament grinder at that time. I was still a pro at that time, actually. And so Poker Stars, which is where I played, and Full Tilt were available here in Ontario. So my life didn't change that much, except for not having a local card room to come to. I was part of a stable at the, I'm like, I was already fully sort of involved and had a poker life that was all online. So where I was didn't really matter. But eventually that did, because I always did like to play live. I'm a winning player online. I like playing online, but live is different. I mean, it really is actually, I think, a completely different game. And I love all the extra information I get. It allows me to make much more accurate decisions and do things that I can't do online, which is really fun and exciting to me. So yeah, it's frustrating. And then we got this room and it's terrible, and I won't go to it because they're so terrible. I refuse to give them my money. And they're also really inconveniently located.
It's true. It's true.
It's actually it's a $40 it's a $60 cab ride. It's like a $40 like Lyft or Uber drive for me to get there. So it's just, and to have such a bad experience, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
I'd rather go to Niagara or Montreal for trips and whatever. Although Toronto has a huge underground scene, which I just didn't know about because I don't like to play underground games. I don't trust them. I don't. I have found one that I enjoy and I think is pretty trustworthy, and I'm hoping they succeed, and I'm trying to like give them feedback and input to make them a really like solid, safe, fair alternative. And they're hoping to go public at some point, which I hope that works out for them, because it would be really nice to have a properly run room. There's definitely the room for it, and I think that operators are starting to see it. Supposedly PokerStars is going to be bringing a tournament here soon. I think Matt Savage, after he saw like how much interest there is and how much we hate the staff there, like I'm hoping he'll bring WPT here. All these series would have some of their hugest turnouts anywhere in the world if they came here. How there's so much poker going on and that yet so little of it is publicly visible is wild to me.
Yeah.
But if somebody would get it together and offer a good experience, they would make a fortune, because the Great Canadian, which is the local casino, is probably missing out. I'm a like, I don't even play very much, like, but with the volume that I do play, I estimate I would pay them $10,000 in rake if they weren't a nightmare.
Yeah.
And so like, even though they are getting business and stuff like that, like they're just losing out on so much business. It has to be because so many people I know won't play there.
Yeah, it's true. And I think like all the people that know poker that I talk about like the high rake, the negative player experience. Like they're actively turning away a lot of the people that really love poker in the game, and yet they're busy all the time. They've got a long wait list. They still charge for Coke and coffee at the table, like they're like 10% rake up to $20 at low stakes. It's just like you would look at it and say, this is a catastrophe, except it's the only game in town. There's no competition. And so there's always a wait, and there's always seats filled. So
So
honestly,
right now they have no incentive to do anything different.
Exactly.
There is no
they think they have no incentive.
Charging for Coke and coffee.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola.
They have no incentive.
Yeah,
but
yes,
the fact of the
yes,
matter
yes,
is
yes.
like, if they treated players well and they like brought the rake down slightly, but like I don't even know that the rake is the biggest issue. Although it is an issue for me, but the rake isn't the reason why I won't go there. It was the player experience.
Yeah.
And the way that they were so dismissive, the way that they refused to learn from experience about bad things that happened at tournaments last year, and refused to learn as the series progressed. I mean, like I was playing, these were WSOP or circuit events, and for every single event, they refused to post the number of entries and payouts until you were just before the money.
Yeah.
In the first event I played, the women's event, they didn't announce it until 5 before the money. I think I busted actually close to the bubble, and I had no idea, because I had no idea how many players there were, how many players were left, and where we were in the tournament. And this is basic information that Lucky Chances was managing to have in their tournaments 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's basic information that should be provided in any tournament, pretty much.
The technology is there.
Yes, close to the bubble, that affects your play.
And so, that actually messes with my ROI.
Yeah.
Like that, and the fact that when we complained about it, they called us disruptors. Like they were like blaming me and saying I was rude because I was demanding to know how many players were in the tournament. Like it was. Like, and then they just shat all over us.
Yeah.
Like, so like, not only do they not try to improve, they didn't even do what most casinos do, which is just lie to you and say that they're going to make it better and do nothing. Like, they wouldn't even try to do that. Like,
that should not be funny.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
But they basically did everything they can to tell us that we don't give a crap about you, and that matters. Like it actually does. And so they may still be getting some business, but I wouldn't doubt that it would be 4 or 5, 10 times as much as they're getting now. And most businesses would care about that.
Yeah, there's an opportunity cost for that level of service for sure. I like the comment from Chris Jones. Yeah, free butter tarts. There you go. Get that Canadian influence in there. Get some Nanaimo bars in there too. Get the craft services on this.
Free Coca-Cola. You have to be
specific. That's right. You're very specific. Very specific.
Leave it at free Coca-Cola.
I mean, it's really wild for a country that's supposedly known for its politeness, and really is.
Yeah.
Everywhere except for in that room.
Yeah, no, it is. It's bizarre.
It's just the room Americana, I think, right?
Yeah, right. All right, well, we got to wrap this up. This has been such a delightful conversation. I want to remind our YouTube chatters, this is your last chance. Type the words food bank in there to be entered into our raffle, and we're going to be sharing all our donations and all our proceeds from the food bank drive this month with Poker Gives, which is a fantastic organization based in Las Vegas. And if you're here for RecPoker weekend at Running Aces in a couple weeks, we're going to be benefiting the Second Harvest Heartland food bank there in the state of Minnesota. So get involved with that. We have Dr. K, we got all these other questions left for you. I think we're just going to have to save them for another time because I really am looking forward. I don't want to rush you as well. I want to take our time with this conversation. So we're going to look forward to having you back sometime in the next little while.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very verbose. I know.
No, this is what we love it. We love it.
Nobody on this panel is verbose.
Yeah, exactly. It's a competition. It's a competition.
Thank
so
you
we're gonna
Googling verbose. I don't
know. You'll just see a photo of Joe and I like going back to back on it. So Dr. K, we are going to send you off with Stake Study Stack. This was promised, and we got some good suggestions from our members here. So Stake Study Stack. This is a game not unlike Kiss, Marry, Kill. We're going to give you 3 names. You have to choose one that you'd like to study with, to help you as a player, one you'd like to stake in a poker venture, and one that you'd like nothing more than to just stack them and steal all the chips at the table. Your 3 names are Jonathan Van Fleet, you might know him as apestyles, Jennifer Harmon, and currently 2-time WSOP Player of the Year, Sean Deeb. Stake, study, and stack. Who's it going to be?
Well, John actually has been my coach for years and is a collaborator, so I guess that's an easy study since he actually is my study buddy. So let's see, Deeb or Harmon.
Jennifer Harmon.
I think staking Deeb is kind of obvious choice actually, and I have stacked Harmon and it was so much fun and I would love to do it again. So yeah, so this was an easy one actually.
All right, love it. Well, we'll put you in the hot seat again next time you come on, and we'll try and make that a little more uncomfortable for you. That is something that we enjoy here. All right, Dr. K, I'll just say you can find out more about Dr. K's poker work at thepokermix.ca. They're Dr. Kamikaze on social media. Doc, what's the best way if you just had to like give people one way to reach out or one way to contact you, what would be the best way for folks to say thanks for coming on the show and keep up the great work?
I have a contact form on my website, pokermix.ca. That's probably the easiest. That goes straight to my email. But also, Twitter is where I am mostly, which is or Blue Sky. I'm at Dr. Kamikaze on both of those. All
right, fantastic. Well, I really want to thank you for your earnestness and your transparency and letting us really into your life, and I appreciate that. I know our audience did as well. I'm looking forward to having you back on the show sometime this fall. I really can't wait.
Thanks. I'd love it. So great to meet you all. Thanks for having me.
Great to meet you as well.
Thanks, Dr. K. The other Dr. K.
Nice to meet another
right.
Dr. K too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, John Somsky, we are on the clock here. Why don't you roll through some recent home game winners, and then we'll give out a fantastic prize.
All right, we'll start with the Tournament of Champions that was held on July 14th in Evil Roy, CA. David Westerveld,
of course,
his 5th lifetime Tournament of Champions win.
Wow.
Not a single one of those has an asterisk, by the way.
I see. Okay. Keep rolling, buddy. All right.
Okay. And then Michael Babker got his 4th nightly victory of the year. PetVet 33, Kim Kilroy got her 3rd nightly victory of the year. Keck Geek got his 4th nightly victory for the year. Cape Poker Wannabe Ron Payton got his 9th nightly victory of the year. JB Twin Cities got her 3rd nightly victory of the year. David Westerveld, Evil Roy CA, got his 5th nightly victory for the year. Larson's Opening, George Borden won the daily mixed event. Roadstar 33 got his 1st international victory, and One Jack Black Brett got his second international victory for the year. And East Coast bidder Ben Enslow won the LPP event for the second time this year. So, Ben, you can contact info@rec.poker for your free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Wow, that's a who's who of the RecPoker community. So many perennial victors, some perpetual winners in the circle there. Congratulations to all the crushers here at RecPoker. And thank you, John, for all your work in the home game club. I see a bunch of folks have gotten the words food bank into the YouTube chat. Invisible producer Chris Jones. Let's pull up the wheel of fame and fortune and see who our lucky winner is going to be this week. And if it lands on the word food bank, I'll make a donation of $20 to a local food bank of my choosing. Let's see who the winner is. I see a Hubie. I see an Ashley. We got, of course, Mr. Joe is in there. It's going to be close. Jaden Jewell. Hey, Jaden Jewell. Welcome back. One of my favorite RecPoker community members, to be completely honest with you. Mary, is lovely to see you in here. I just got an email from you, I see, and going to be looking forward to getting back in the lab with Jaden Jewell over the next little while. So congratulations. Send that email to info@rec.poker and claim your fantastic prize from Rob Gardner. All right, gang, I think that's it for us tonight. I want to remind everyone, get out to Running Aces for Friday, August 1st and Saturday, August 2nd. So there's going to be tournaments all day. It is a fantastic time, and we're going to have a wonderful experience over there hanging out and having some meals together and stealing each other's chips and supporting local food banks, just generally having a great time. So do come on out to that. I want to thank Dr. Kamikaze for being a fantastic guest. Look forward to talking to her again soon. Lorianne Persinger, Joe Coolis, John Somsky, Invisible producer Chris Jones. Of course, everyone in the YouTube chat, thank you so much for all your contributions. And everyone at RecPoker, we'll see you next week on the RecPoker Podcast. Good night, everybody.